This is Bruce May, and I'm with David Dodd. He's the founder of the International Sustainable Resilience Center. He is an expert in disaster preparedness, disaster recovery, and economic resilience, which says a lot. David, welcome to the interview. Really look forward to hearing what you have to tell us today.
It's great to be here, Bruce. Thanks so much.
So tell us a little bit. Let's start with resilience. So what is resilience all about?
Resilience is a buzzword, but it really, when you boil it down, is very simple. It's the ability to adapt to and withstand a disruptive event and the ability to recover more quickly from that disruption.
So this is different from disaster preparedness. So in the old days, you'd get prepared for the disaster, then you'd have the disaster, and then everything would fall apart, right? So this is about building capacity and resilience into an economy so it can better handle the disasters?
Yeah, it's really more that this is, preparedness is somewhat analogous to resilience, but response. So what used to happen is a disaster would happen, would come, and believe me, there's nothing at all wrong with response, because that is where lives are saved. The responders, the people that do that, are heroes. But that would be the extent of it. A disaster would happen, the responders would come help people, help save lives, help save property, clean up after the disaster, and then that was it. And the recognition came about decades ago that we really needed to do something more, and we really needed to help people recover long term, and as they're recovering, we need to help them become more resilient. And that can happen in a variety of ways, from strengthening structures to having people prepared, knowing exactly where they're going to go, what route they're going to take to escape a natural disaster, to ensuring that equipment, and in a business sense, that the equipment, the inventory, all of that can be protected through a business continuity plan. So it's a multifaceted dimension, but it is extremely, extremely important.
Well, what about the situation which we saw in Katrina, where you had 250,000 people left Louisiana and mostly transplanted overnight to Texas, and they never went back? How do you deal with that?
Well, sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened in New Orleans is 85% of the population it was before Katrina. And some people came back, some people didn't, but some new people. Mm-hmm. And so New Orleans, in a way, transformed itself and in the process became more resilient. It was the first city that is a well-known large city that is known to have created a resilient strategy for itself. So, you know, we don't ever want disaster to happen, but through disasters we can increase resilience. But we don't have to wait until a disaster, Bruce. We can increase resilience before a disaster happens, and that's really where the focus is now. Let's not wait until something destructive happens. Let's become more resilient now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So there's obviously COVID-19 came along and was a big surprise. We've used a lot of other forms of disasters, from earthquakes to hurricanes and tornadoes. We live with fires in California every year, but this one was new, and it seemed to really take us by surprise and really knocked us, the whole country, off in a pretty big way. So what? Yeah, whole world. Yeah. So what are the lessons in resilience for COVID-19?
Well, I think there are several things that we have learned, not as a global community. I want to put it in that context, because you know we didn't know what we didn't know. What we did know is that this was a deadly virus. It was 20 times more contagious than the flu, and the implications of it were pretty dire, even for relatively healthy people. And so, you know, looking at this, you know, a disaster, a typical natural disaster, you know, has boundaries around it. It hits a particular area. It is of a particular duration. when the fire's out, and God help us for the people in California, because it seems like the fire's never going out. But when a fire's out in a particular area, it's out until another one happens. When a hurricane hits an area, it's finished until another hurricane hits. But this is an ongoing, completely global phenomenon, and we've never had anything hit everywhere and affect everyone and affect the entire economy of the entire world the way this has. So this disaster mandates a bold response, and it mandates that we do things in a way we've never done them before, because this has never happened to us before.
So you're talking about investment, economic stimulus programs. You're talking about what, just coming up with every creative idea you can think of?
Well, thank you for putting it up, because this needs to be separated. You know, central banks and governments around the world reacted to the immediate economic damage by stimulus packages, sending checks, helping people that have been unemployed. But separate issue, and that is the adaptation of infrastructure and systems, built environment and systems, from everything from transportation. We all know what's happened in the airline industry, to manufacturing. Social distancing is creating demands on manufacturing and distribution, to retail and services. We all know all of these industries have been affected, but also our institutions, learning, medicine, social outreach and social services. All of these have been disrupted. So what can we do to invest in the built environment and in systems to adapt them to this new reality? And we all know that COVID is we all hope, that COVID's going to be addressed with vaccines, with other means to address that. But we don't know that there's not going to be another virus behind that. And a lot of experts say there is.
Yeah.
So where we sit and where my center sits, and by the way, we're a part of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe International Public-Private Partnerships Center of Excellence. And the goal of that Center of Excellence is to further the development of public-private partnerships that will help implement the Sustainable Development Goals.
So let me interrupt you there. I'm just curious. So public-private partnerships, can you give us, we know that they've been around forever. They build roads and bridges and things. Do you see a larger role for public-private partnerships in what's going on with COVID-19?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely. And adapting to these new requirements, these new needs. But public partnerships have been used in a variety of different ways, even when they're not always called that. I come from economic development. Economic development is a form of public-private partnership. The public sector invests in infrastructure, it may invest in training, it may invest in incentives of other kinds. In exchange for that, the private sector invests, creates jobs, and provides a return to the public sector. So that is truly a public-private partnership. Now, there are other public-private partnerships that are really private-public partnerships.
Thank you for this short interview, and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.